Hey everyone, this is Steve Weintraub with Collider, and I'm here at the Collider Media Studio in Austin at South by Southwest. And I want to give a huge thank you to Cinema Center for partnering up with us so we can do interviews like for Outerlands. How are you doing?
Great, it's so lovely to be here.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Sorry.
No, thank you just for having us.
I'm really happy you guys came in. And what's interesting is there was just a film in here that took place in San Francisco, and your film takes place in San Francisco, and I really enjoyed both films, and must be something in the San Francisco water.
Definitely. Yeah, it's a magical city, very photogenic, very inspiring to film there. So
Yeah. So listen, I have a lot of things I want to talk to you about, but I got to start with the generic up front, which is most people watching this will not have seen the movie yet. So how have you been describing it to people?
we've been describing it to people as a queer coming of age movie that is about a person who works as a nanny in San Francisco who gets left with an 11-year-old girl, and her mother disappears, and that's sort of the setup of the film. But really, it's a drama. It's about coming home to ourselves, acknowledging wounds that we might not have acknowledged in the past, and ultimately, kind of, when I say coming of age, it's like we all, even as adults, are still coming of age. So it's like, how do we come into adulthood?
One of the things that I commend you on is that the characters and the situations felt very authentic and real, and what like this could really be happening. And so can you sort of talk about like trying to capture that and put it on screen and not make it feel like Hollywood?
Yeah, I think that's just that's staying true to what life feels like to me as a writer. I mean, I feel like when we make movies, we're aspiring to honor how rich and deep life is, and we actually, I don't think, ever get there. It's a very hard thing to do, but as a writer, I always try and just stay close to it and avoid, the cliches or the sort of ready-made ideas, but kind of stick to my experience or the experience of people I know, and kind of be loyal to that, and then I think it flows from there.
For all three of you, what was it about this? I know obviously you produced and you're very involved, but what was it about this script and this story that said, I really want to do this?
Shall I?
Go for it.
The writing, first and foremost. The story was so clear. The first time I read through the draft, I immediately understood not only my character, Cass Marks, who I didn't mention before, but also all the characters, and it felt, like you said, very real. And I hadn't ever read a script like this before. I hadn't read this particular story before. I hadn't played this particular type of character before. It felt very new, very relevant, but also there are elements of the story that were like personally nostalgic for me and or synchronistic for me. And I mean, I read the script on an airplane, and I immediately texted my manager and I just said, I have to make this film. Please set up a meeting with the director, as soon as possible. The writing was the answer.
Just the fact that it was so real and it could actually happen in real life, it just spoke to me in a way.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely the writing. Sometimes scripts are just so jam-packed and there's all these words and they're just not necessary. And I felt like less was way more, and just the story and the story of acceptance, and I really just could connect to it. And also the hearts involved, I would say, like from the top down. Our producers are just the sweetest. They had us over to their home, all of us, the cast and crew. It was like the most diverse crew I've ever worked with. It was honestly so inspiring, and I'm just so proud to be here with everybody. I'm just grateful to be in this movie.
You bring up something that I wanted to talk about, and another thing that I really commend you on is the lack of unnecessary dialogue and exposition that's not needed. It is people speak when they would really speak, and it's honest conversations. Can you sort of talk about that aspect?
For me, a lot of that is trusting and respecting the audience.
I wish more people did.
I think the audience we participate when we watch things, and I love it when films leave spaces and gaps for us to actually use our hearts and minds to fill those in rather than sort of telling us everything. And then I make film because I'm in love with the visual medium, so it can say so much. And this film happened to be about a character who's sort of a person of few words. That's part of their characters. They're kind of stoic, and I mean, that was one of the reasons of, casting Asia and really choosing Asia as this is cast, is I just knew that they were an actor who's going to be able to sort of convey so much with so little, because so much of the performance is really unspoken.
One of the things, I don't want to get too specific, I don't want to do any spoilers or ruin any aspect of the movie, but there is a video game component. I'm a big video game fan, and I grew up with games, but you have the Super NES, and the game Outerlands plays a big role in the movie, and the game is not real, as far as I know. Well,
I can say something about that. So the game is actually real. It's a game called Redder by a video game designer named Anna Anthropy.
Right, but it wasn't called Outerlands.
It was not. No, Outerlands is not real.
Yeah, that's what.
Correct.
Yeah.
And she designed the end sequence, was written into the script, and she sort of designed that very end sequence that comes at the end of the film. But yeah, we did use a Super NES. It was sort of like we kind of intended it to. I mean, people who know that system will recognize it, but it was meant to be a kind of generic sort of a certain era, but not something in particular.
Well, one of the things that the film gets into, and your character goes to the arcade, plays video games and pinball, and I think that a lot of video game players, not all, but a lot, use video games as a form of escapism to, it's entertainment, but for some people it's just escape from the reality of life. And so was that something that was like you thought about, or am I digging too deep?
Oh, no, definitely. I mean, the movie, this isn't giving anything away. The movie begins with cast kind of playing a little game on their phone. And the context of that scene is they're definitely, it's soothing. It's a self-soothing kind of mechanism. At the same time, when we say escape, there can be like a negative connotation to escaping into phones or video games or whatever. And I see it's more complex than that, because there can actually be a lot of solace, I know, and a lot of people for video games, that there's a lot of solace in that activity, and I think the same goes for cast. So it's both. Yeah,
I'm not trying to make it so it's all negative, but I've seen both sides of it. You know what I mean? And for some people, anyway, we're going off.
Totally, no, you're totally onto something, because I think a big theme of the movie is how we avoid pain.
Absolutely. So for the three of you, you know the shooting schedule, you see what's coming up. What day do you have circled in terms of, I can't wait to film this? And what do you have circled in terms of, how the F am I going to film this? Sorry for my language.
Please don't swear around me. Do you want, I can go first again, but
Go for it.
Okay. I had the entire film circled as I can't wait to show up every day. I mean, truly, every single day was a joy and also a creative challenge, which I love. I will say, I pretty quickly realized that I had to approach each filming day very differently than I had on previous projects. Meaning, for example, on a given day, there would be 17 scenes on the call sheet, because those scenes were just moments, like Cass wakes up and looks at their alarm clock. Cass wakes up on the couch and looks at the beer bottles. Cass is running down the stairs, right? It's like all these little moments, but all of them obviously require probably a costume change, certainly a different emotional state. And because Elena and I did so much prep for the film, and I knew the film inside and out, backwards and forwards, all the other metaphors, I just actually said, I need to show up on the day and you just tell me actually what we're going to do next. Because if I look at it and I say, I have these 17, I'm going to lose my mind, actually. And so it was a different way of working for me that ultimately I found really benefited me, and therefore I hope the film.
But also it sounds like you had done so much work prior to stepping on set, thinking about everything.
Yeah.
That,
Definitely. I mean, they were like, we're going to do this now. And I was like, great. I know what that is. So, yeah.
there weren't days that I didn't want to do. It was all, there were days that were more challenging than others. It was always fun to be on set, and it was just more challenging than others on certain days.
Good answer.
Yeah, Ridley and I both had to learn. I mean, I had to learn to drive a scooter, but Ridley also had to learn to be a passenger on a scooter with me. I feel like those days might have been just a little more challenging, certainly because of the like physical aspect. Yeah, do you agree? Yeah, cool.
Same. It was just fun to show up. We knew what we were signing up for, so we were all game. And I guess it's so funny. It's like the intimacy scene was so easy to do because it was just well guided, and that was like a piece of cake. And then I think the scene that gave me the most anxiety was the running into the ocean potentially. But people were like standing by with blankets, and we were so well taken care of, and it was actually exhilarating to be able to do that. It was very cold. I think we were like right next to the Cliff House in San Francisco on the beach. But it was a thrill actually. So yeah, lucky.
This is not a spoiler, but over the end credits, you have a song by a band that I love. And so I don't know if I can say it, if I can or not. I don't want to say it.
Maybe don't. My instinct is don't, because it's also because I have a good story about it, but we don't need to spoil it.
Okay.
Sorry, into the mic.
Yeah,
Jones.
I was going to say, well, at some point I want to know how you managed to get this band to give you a song.
We can answer that.
I can answer that without
Sure.
telling who the band is. I wrote them a letter at the advice of our producers and our PR team. I mean, everyone. They were like, just write them a letter. They are one of my top 5 favorite bands of all time. One of the best live shows I've ever seen. And so it was. And their records have been on repeat for me for like 20 years at least. So it was a very easy and genuine letter to write, and it was just about whether or not we could get that letter to them.
Sure.
And I don't know, magic and hard work and diligence made it happen. And it's just cool to know that like they read my letter and they were like, yeah, we want to give you this song for this film. And part of it was acknowledging that, dance music is so integral in the LGBTQIA plus community, and, how they've been allies for so long and how it would really mean so much to have their song in the film. So, yay.
I am a huge fan of the band. And without giving anything away, they have a soundtrack out for something, and I have listened to that soundtrack probably 1,000 times. It is like one of my favorite of all time. So I'm almost out of time, but I like talking about editing. So you have a cut, you're editing, you have a cut, you're like showing it to the first friends and family. Like, did you jump out the window, or are you like, oh, it's coming together. This is good. Just some small tweaks.
Yeah, a little bit of both, I'd say. It's very nerve-wracking the first time you show what you've been working on to an audience. What was reassuring is that my editor, amazing editor Chris Brown, and I, who'd been kind of holed up in his apartment / our editing suite, working on this, the same things that our gut told us needed work were what got reflected back to us by our audience. And that's always just such a great thing when that happens. So it sort of was just like a reassuring of, yeah, we're on the right track. So we had one like small little test screening like that kind of when we were about, I'd say 3/4 of the way there, or 80%. And then from there, finished the cut. And yeah.
Did you end up making any sort of big changes to the film that you were not expecting? Or was it more like little like surgical cuts?
There was a few. There was both. There was definitely surgical cuts, but there was a kind of substantial change about how the film about the ending of the film. It was nothing that wasn't in the script, but it was a sort of cutting and pruning to streamline things. I think something that can happen, this happened with my script, is like there can sometimes be a sort of multiple ending things or multiple low point, and we sort of had that going on. Unfortunately, it meant we lost some like great performance moments and whatever, but you have to always sacrifice, right, for the flow of the story.
Also, eventually you can release deleted scenes and let people see them.
Yeah,
some directors don't like doing that, and others are like, let's just show them they were good moments.
Yeah.
I'm basically out of time. And also the other thing is I want to talk about specifics and moments, but I can't. So that's for another time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just going to say sincerely, you guys did a great job with this, and I really hope that people get to watch it and have a fantastic South by.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.